What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in. So, Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao, I want to break it down in detail. I want to explain what I feel each fighter needs to do to win the fight. I'll start with Errol Spence. Errol Spence is a strong fighter. He's fundamentally very sound. Great body puncher. Excellent jab. He gauges and controls distance with his jab beautifully. And I think that's sort of an underrated asset that he has. I mean, when you watch Errol Spence fight, the first thing that most people notice is, man, this guy really digs to the body well, which he does. He's phenomenal at that. But his jab is fantastic. If there's one punch in his arsenal, one particular punch that I would consider to be his best shot, it's definitely his jab. So what I feel he needs to do against Manny Pacquiao to win this fight, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. I think Vegas is proclaiming him now as like the 5-1 favorite, which I do believe is a little wide. And I believe Pacquiao is a phenomenal bet for this fight. If you're looking to bet money on this fight, absolutely put it down on Pacquiao. And I'm going to explain why. But Spence needs to be very persistent with that jab for the entirety of the fight. Regardless of how long it lasts, he needs to stuff that jab in Pacquiao's face, keep him off balance, keep him off rhythm, but accompany it with an adequate amount of pressure, an adequate amount of aggression. Make Pacquiao respect you, especially early on, because Pacquiao is very dangerous early, especially now more than ever. Pacquiao no longer has the gas tank that he used to have. He now fights more in spurts, whereas before he would fight in a more consistent rhythm, in and out, in and out, in and out for the entirety of the fight, and he would not gas out. Now that he's older, he definitely is more picky and choosy with his spots, but he's also a little bit smarter, and that experience has shown through in fights. So Spence does need to gain his respect early, and he needs to really focus on cutting the ring off. He needs to cut the ring off, and every single time he cuts the ring off on Pacquiao, he's going to have to follow that up with heavy power shots, particularly to the body, to slow Pacquiao down, But Pacquiao's a pretty tough guy to land body shots on because he's always moving, he's always pivoting, he's always up, down, left, right, all over the place. He's hard to gauge. But Spence is excellent at cutting the ring off. He works his way in with his jab. As soon as he gets Pacquiao backed into a corner, boom, lay in some body shots. But that's very important. I think Spence needs to his number one focus in this camp should be landing that jab and dominating with that jab. That's what he has to do, in my opinion. And he also needs to make sure that he's changing levels, not in the punches that he throws, but his body posture. Because what I noticed the last time I watched the Danny Garcia fight, which was recently, I noticed that, he pivots real well. He's always got really great balance. He's always in a position to throw a punch, which is very important. And that's part of the reason why I said he's so fundamentally sound. He doesn't really, there's no real glaring weakness in his arsenal. He's a very stable, solid fighter. But the one thing that I did notice is that he doesn't change his upper body level very much. He's pretty much standing straight up. And Pacquiao loves when people stand in front of him. He loves when guys stand straight up in front of him. And Pacquiao's going to eat him up. He's going to eat him up. He's going to work his way in and eat him up with combination punches if Spence is too stationary, too upright. He's always got to be changing levels, keeping the jab going, staying on the front foot, utilizing your height and reach advantage, and cutting the ring off. When I look at this fight on paper, I do slightly, I did say this was not my official prediction, but I do right now slightly, ever so slightly favor Spence in the fight. But really his only advantage, his only concrete advantage in this fight, other than youth, is the height and reach advantage. I wouldn't even necessarily say punching power. I think that's up in the air. You can argue Spence hits a little bit harder than Pacquiao, but I don't think that's a fact. I don't think that's a fact. Chris Algieri, say what you want about Chris Algieri, but Chris Algieri did fight both Pacquiao and Spence. And, he stated that he believes Pacquiao's got better defense, Pacquiao's faster, Pacquiao probably even hits a little bit harder, so, and you've seen it early on in fights. You've seen it early on in fights, the way he knocked down Keith Thurman, the way he blasted Lucas Matisse out of there. I mean, Pacquiao's just very explosive, very dangerous early on in a fight. So what I believe Pacquiao has to do to win the fight is just that he needs to be very explosive early on. He needs to jump on Errol Spence, show him who's boss, utilize that speed advantage. Not recklessly, of course, but he definitely does need to get in Spence's face early on. Keep Spence on the back foot as much as possible, if it is possible. We're going to find out. But make Spence uncomfortable. Utilize those angles, because I'm telling you something. Perhaps Pacquiao's best asset is that footwork, that foot speed, the angles that he uses. And if he makes it a point to use those angles consistently, I don't think Spence is going to be able to keep up with him. However, Pacquiao, due to his age, did show in the Keith Thurman fight that he started to gas out in the mid-rounds. He sort of gained a second wind in, the latter rounds, maybe like rounds like 10, 11, 12. But in the mid-rounds, he definitely gassed out a bit. He can't afford to do that against Spence. He cannot afford to do that against Spence. So, to avoid that, when I said he needs to jump on him early, he absolutely does. However, he needs to balance that with maintaining a certain level of energy, And there's a chance that he's going to have to give up a few rounds in the middle of the fight to conserve that energy. That's why it's so important for Pacquiao to get up early in the fight. And again, like I said, the way he's going to do that is with activity and angles. Jumping on Spence with combinations. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Spence is not going to be able to keep up with the speed of Pacquiao. Spence isn't a slow guy. I wouldn't categorize him as a slow fighter, but he's not fast either. He's not twitchy. He's not that fast. So Pacquiao's way faster than Spence. Way faster. And he's really going to have to use that early on. I can't emphasize that enough. Down the stretch, Pacquiao's also going to need to have a second win, kind of like he did against Keith Thurman. I think basically the Keith Thurman model is a good model to go by. I think if he fights a similar type of fight against Spence, he's going to win. But he needs to maintain a little bit more stamina, and he cannot get himself against the ropes. I repeat, he cannot get himself against the ropes. If Spence starts effectively cutting the ring off before Pacquiao is even on the ropes, he's got enough experience now, Pacquiao, to where he knows where he is in the ring at all times. And he needs to get out. He needs to get out off the ropes immediately. He cannot languish on the ropes and put himself at risk for a big body shot, or really a big shot in general. So, anyway, that's kind of my breakdown of what I think each guy needs to do. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Pacquiao has a shot in this fight? I certainly believe so. I might even be picking Pacquiao as we get a little bit closer to the fight. As the fight marinates a little bit more, we see these guys in training camp. My opinion is subject to change, but right now I have Spence by a close UD. I just think that overall, his size, his youth, I hate to say it, it's probably going to prevail. I just think he's look, when Pacquiao fought Margarito might be slightly bigger than Errol Spence, but not by much. Pacquiao really made it clear that, man, he was a bit big for me. He hurt me pretty bad. And although Pacquiao put an absolute ass whooping on Margarito, he still to this day claims that it was probably his toughest fight. And that was mainly due to the size of Margarito. Now, Spence, being close to that size, also has a much higher level of skill than Margarito ever had. So, this is a very interesting fight in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of variables involved. Pacquiao could have fallen off a cliff from the Thurman fight till now and might get absolutely destroyed, dominated. He might have turned into an old man overnight. We don't know yet. There's a lot of things we're just simply not going to know until the fight actually transpires. But let me know what you guys think, and until the next one.